Welcome everybody, my name is Mitchell and this is Basketball Under Review. Today we will discuss whether or not Russell Westbrook in the 2016-17 season was the worst MVP winner of the modern era. Before we get into the video, I would just like to clarify a few things. First, the modern era is recognized as the 1979-80 season to present, therefore we will not be looking at any MVP winners before 1980. So don't worry Wessensild, you're safe for today. Second, I am in no way calling Russell Westbrook a bad player. He's a top 10 player in the league and debatably top 5. The objective of this video is not to put Russell Westbrook down. That being said, I will be critical towards Russ in this video, but that does not mean I think he's a bad player. With that out of the way, let's get started.
As we proceed to give you what you need. Oh, get it live,
In the summer of 2016, Kevin Durant shocked the NBA community by signing with the 73-9 Golden State Warriors after blowing a 3-1 lead to them in the Western Conference Finals. This left Russell Westbrook by himself in OKC to try contend for a low seed. Rumbles from the community began that Russ was angry. People started thinking Westbrook had a chance to win MVP with his newfound hunger for revenge. The season began, and as expected, Westbrook went off, averaging 31.1 points, 10.1 assists, and 9.2 rebounds in his first 10 games, leading some people to believe that he had a shot at not just MVP, but averaging a triple-double. The season went on, Westbrook's numbers got even better, and without his superstar teammate in Kevin Durant, he carried an absolute awful team to the 6th seed in the West, while putting up some of the best numbers we have seen in decades, averaging a triple-double, something that had only happened one other time in NBA history, all the way back in the 60s, and as many expected, he won the 2017 MVP award over the likes of James Harden, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, and of course, his former teammate, Kevin Durant. That's the narrative given on Russell Westbrook's MVP season. It's quite impressive, honestly. The guy definitely deserved to win MVP, it's just that other players deserved it even more than him, and especially when you look deeper into his numbers, it becomes pretty clear that he did not put up an actual MVP season, statistically at least. The biggest reason Russ won MVP was because of his triple-double average, so let's look into it. Westbrook was a 2017 scoring champion, averaging 31.6 points per game. But was this the outcome of efficient shooting or volume shooting? Let's compare his efficiency stats to his former teammate Kevin Durant's MVP season, in which he also won the NBA scoring title with a comparable average of 32 points per game in 2014. When we look at the numbers, Kevin Durant beats Westbrook in field goal percentage, 2-point percentage, 3-point percentage, free throw percentage, true shooting percentage, and effective field goal percentage. Now, I know it's not really fair to compare Russ to one of the greatest scorers of all time. I just thought it'd be fun to look at them side by side. Russ doesn't stack up well with the other MVPs either. He ends up being the 4th worst volume 3-point shooter since the 3-point line was introduced in 1982. And they may not sound so bad considering there aren't too many volume 3-point shooters to win an MVP, but it's still not a pretty number. And get this. Out of the 32 times a player has shot the same amount or more 3-pointers than Russell Westbrook did in a season, he has the worst 3-point percentage out of all of them. He's 32nd out of 32. And if we're comparing overall field goal percentage, it gets way worse. Russell Westbrook, since 1980, has, get this, the 2nd worst field goal percentage of any MVP in the modern era, leading only Allen Iverson by 0.5%. And don't worry, I'll get to Allen Iverson one day. And similar to his 3-pointers, out of the 29 times a player has shot more or the same amount as Russell Westbrook in his season, he has the 2nd worst field goal percentage out of all of them, beating only Jack Twyman by 0.3%. And Jack Twyman played in the 1960s. Russell Westbrook was so inefficient in 2017 that he ranked below league average in field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, 2-point percentage, true shooting percentage, and effective field goal percentage. The only efficiency stat he did not rank below league average was free throw percentage. That's it. So, while Westbrook did win the scoring title, he did it while shooting more than anybody else in the NBA with 24 field goal attempts a game, and it was at the expense of being one of the least efficient MVPs ever, not to mention one of the most inefficient volume shooters in the NBA that season. This proves that Russell Westbrook's scoring output was simply a byproduct of extremely inefficient volume shooting. One of the most impressive parts of Westbrook's game is his rebounding ability. He has always been a great rebounder at his position, and I will never take that away from him. In fact, this season, he actually ranked second in offensive rebounding among guards in the entire NBA, behind only Tony Allen. He's also a good defensive rebounder, and in 2017, he ranked 5th in defensive rebounds per game in the entire NBA. But how is a point guard able to out-rebound 7-footers like Rudy Gobert or DeMarcus Cousins? This is how. Out of the top 15 defensive rebounders in the league, Westbrook had the lowest contested defensive rebound percentage with 16.1%, while the other 9 had a percentage of 30.2 or higher. 30.2, that's almost double! This disparity is explained by the OKC big men boxing out for Westbrook for him to grab the free rebound. As seen here.
All-star break, he shot 4 out of 17, misses the second free throw.
The basketball. He's leading the NBA in scoring.
Double miss here, Westbrook with unattended for 3 and comes up wide left. I'm thinking about the blind squirrel that occasionally.
This is in. You'll see them settle down a little bit more out there. And if they go under, as Nick Young lines up another.
The last 32 years. Clarkson rims that one out, and then D'Angelo Russell 3s in a game. Abrinas tonight, and that's the second time this season Westbrook has.
Are you still not convinced that his rebounds aren't from stat padding? Listen to this. There are 74 players in the NBA in 2017 that averaged 4.3 defensive rebounds or more. Out of those 74 players, Russell Westbrook had the lowest contested defensive rebound percentage out of all 74. I mean, like, come on now. There's no excuse. This information should have made it very clear that Westbrook's rebounds are severely inflated. And if you're still impressed by Westbrook's 10 rebounds, then I have no words for you. I don't have too much to say about his assists. I mean, the guy's a good playmaker. I'm not going to say he's not. He ranked 3rd in the NBA with assists with 10.4, so I can't really say much. But I do want to bring a couple things up. While he was 3rd in assists per game, he was 19th in passes per game, despite having the ball in his hands more than any other player in NBA history, which suggests that he only passed when he thought he could get an assist out of it, rather than passing and keep the offense moving. He also had just an atrocious assist-turnover ratio with 1.92, which, get this, ranks dead last in NBA history out of players with 10 or more assists per game in a season. So I can hope we can put this triple-double average thing behind us now. Because it's obviously not nearly as impressive as it seems on the surface. And since that was the number one reason for people having him as the MVP, it's really hard to say that he deserved MVP over, say, James Harden. Going into Westbrook's MVP season, the expectations for the Thunder were to contend for a lower seed and get knocked out in the first or second round. It turned out that they would do exactly that, capturing the 6th seed and being knocked out in the first round in just 5 games by the Houston Rockets. Now, I'm not saying that Westbrook underperformed, but if we look back at the history, MVPs tend to exceed expectations, not barely meet them. If we look at just the last 3 MVP winners, they all exceeded expectations. In 2015, the Golden State Warriors surprised everyone and finished the season with 67 wins, the most wins that season. Steph Curry was undoubtedly the leader of that team, and the biggest reason they were able to win so many games. Then he would follow up that season, leading his team to 73 wins, an NBA record. In 2014, Kevin Durant led the Thunder to the 2nd best record in the league, despite Russell Westbrook being injured for half the season. And in 2013, LeBron James led the Heat to 66 wins, the most that season, and shot above 40% from the three-point line for the first time in his career. In the modern era, no MVP has ever been below a 3rd seed, yet somehow Russell Westbrook is able to win MVP as a 6th seed. It's often said that Westbrook had no help and that his team would have been a bottom 5 team in the league without him, and I honestly have no idea where this idea comes from. Let's look at his team. In OKC, Oladipo averaged 15.9 points per game, 2.6 assists per game, and 4.3 rebounds per game. These numbers were actually down from the year before in Orlando across the board, but this wasn't because he got worse. On the contrary, let's look at his numbers this year, where he's actually been given a chance to show what he can do. In Indiana, Oladipo was averaging 23.1 points per game on a higher efficiency, 4.3 assists per game, and 5.2 rebounds per game, while leading the league in steals with 2.4. Oladipo could have been a really good second option to Westbrook, but as we've seen recently, it's really hard to play with Russ. Next we have Steven Adams. Adams is a great player, but his talent wasn't on full display in OKC in 2017. He had low rebounding numbers due to him boxing up for Westbrook and didn't score a lot despite him being one of the strongest players in the league and shooting 57.1% from the field. He didn't get too many shot opportunities on account of Westbrook shooting 24 low% shots a game while leaving Adams with only 8.2 attempts per game, which he still turned into 11.3 points. This season, he was given a chance to show just how good he actually is in the post, with Russell taking a step back from hero ball, and was given 1.2 extra attempts per game, which translated to 13.2 points per game on an astonishing 62.9 field goal percentage. Adams' post presence should have been used more by Russell Westbrook instead of him manufacturing assists with driving kick plays all the time. Next we have Enes Kanter, who was good for OKC, with averages of 14.3 points per game on 54.5% field goal percentage and 6.8 rebounds per game. But like Oladipo, Kanter was much better once he left OKC. This season he averaged 14.1 points per game on a much higher efficiency of 59.2%, and even more shocking is his rebounding numbers. No longer stuck boxing up for Westbrook, Kanter's rebounds increased dramatically, from 6.8 rebounds per game to 11 rebounds per game, a 4.2 increase in one season. This is while averaging only 4.5 more minutes per game. Lastly, we have Andre Roberson. While we can't tell for sure if Roberson would be better on another team like Oladipo or Kanter, that's not the point of bringing him up. Roberson is a great defender for OKC and was placed on the all-defensive second team in 2017. He was arguably the second most important player on the team behind only Westbrook, and any team in the NBA would love to have him on the roster. And then if you throw in OKC's decent to good role players like Doug McDermott, Alex Abrinas, Domantas Sabonis, Jeremy Grant, and a healthy Taj Gibson, I could see this team getting the 8th seed or barely missing the playoffs, which is a far cry from a bottom 5 team. Well, that's all the information I have to present to you, so the question remains. Is the man who was the second least efficient MVP of the modern era a man who was the second least efficient volume shooter in NBA history? A man who artificially manufactured rebounds like crazy? A man who wouldn't pass the ball except for an assist as a point guard and main ball handler? A man who couldn't exceed expectations despite having a good supporting cast in which he didn't use to its full potential? Is this man, Russell Westbrook, the worst MVP winner of the modern era? That's for you to decide. Thanks for watching, everybody. This has been Basketball Under Review. I'm out.